There is a richness in our traditions, all of them, that we need to draw on. They are not just bunches of rituals that we do in private. Oh, somebody gets married, somebody grows up from being a child to being an adult, somebody gets baptized, the spring comes and there's Passover and Easter, the moon shifts and Ramadan comes. These are full of the possibility of action. The chant I chanted, Echa, the Lamentations chant, midsummer, when it's hottest, not only here, but in the stretches of the Middle Near East. It was the day in Jewish tradition when the temple was burned. That microcosm in the great heat, the scorching heat of the Hamzin, that microcosm of the planet burned. And as a result, Jews for 2,500 years after the first burning and 2,000 since the second burning have fasted, have mourned, and have done something else quite extraordinary, which is that our tradition asserted that on that day of despair and destruction, the Messiah was born. Not yet revealed, not yet come into the world, not yet ready to transform, because we weren't ready to transform the world, but born. The beginnings of the possibility of hope. Can we take this moment and turn it from despair, which is the absence of hope, to hope? There's only one way to do that. Hope is not an emotion. Hope is an action. Hope is a whole cluster of actions. And so finally, I want to draw on what I did this morning that many of you may have heard, and I think some of you did not. I handed out, and with help, others handed out with me, a wonderful 4-page thing on which is, on the first page, a quite extraordinary graphic. It's the 13-star flag of America's independence. July 4th is coming. Are we independent from the corporations?
No.
Are we independent from big coal?
No.
Are we independent from big oil?
No.
Tikkun and the network of spiritual progressives have developed a whole constitutional amendment. I think it's actually longer than the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, which is the longest, to try to define what needs to be done to constrain the corporations, which have grown utterly an undemocratic element, which the Supreme Court has now put the seal on, saying, hey, forget about democracy. These are the real institutions that can govern our society by putting money into election campaigns. But that was only the final step. There may be other steps too. Can we declare our independence from the corporations? Can we declare, Amazenya this morning said, both in the gathering and to me, yeah, independence from the corporations, and the moment is independence from big oil. Because that is what the American people are now standing horrified to watch what it has done to us. Already, even before the planet has undergone the scorching, I don't call it global warming. Warming is so pleasant. I mean, how can you be against, I mean, on a day like this in DC maybe, but otherwise, but the truth is global scorching, global frying, global burning, not global warming. Can we transform that? I said this morning, I know there's less than a month till July 4th. There isn't time to do what that piece of paper imagines, that all over America, people march on state houses in big cities and so on, carrying the 13-star flag. I think that there isn't time to do it. But I want to remind you, 1776 didn't happen in a vacuum. In fact, the year before, the colonies agreed on a declaration not yet of independence, but a declaration of challenge to the British Empire, which included boycotting British wool. Why? Because it was a crucial element of the empire's economy. And instead they said, we may associate this with Gandhi 2 centuries later, they said, let's do homespun in America and create our own clothing. So, that may not be the central issue, but oil is. Can we begin boycotting BP? Boycotting big oil, not just BP, by transforming the way we get around? Can we shake off our own addictions while directly challenging, not just doing it as individual persons, but directly challenging the drug lords of this business? So we can begin from here and let it grow. And maybe this July 4th or maybe next July 4th, it can be really a challenge. This morning also, I shared a teaching that I was taught by my father when I was a kid. He was a U.S. history teacher in the public schools of Baltimore. And he said to me, when I was about 11 or 12, he said, you know this song, Yankee Doodle? And I said, well, sure. He said, you know, it sounds like a nonsense song. Stuck a feather in his cap and called it macaroni? That's a joke, right? I said, yeah. He said, no, it's not. The reason, he said, and this is now my tradition, whether it goes back 200 years in history, I honestly don't know. But it's now my tradition. I've taught it to my kids, and within a year or two, I'll be teaching it to my grandkids. He said, the song began as a British Army song, making fun of the American Army. Because for the British Army, if you got to be an officer, you put what they called macaroni on your epaulets. We call it scrambled eggs. Looks the same, kind of like this weird, messy business of yellow stuff mixed up. Scrambled eggs, macaroni, gold braid. That was the way you announced you were an officer in the British Army. These American nincompoops. Somebody would come off a farm, a dozen people would elect one of the farmers an officer, and he would stick a feather in his cap, and then they all thought he was an officer. Isn't that absurd? Well, to an imperial army, it seems absurd. To an army made up of farmers and city workers in Boston, it wasn't absurd at all. And they won. So the song, here's a new verse for the 21st century. Yankee Doodle faced big oil, riding on a cycle. Your power don't scare us today. Your oil ain't worth a nickel. So I'm going to sing it again, line by line, which is what, very smartly, smarter than I was this morning, Amma did. And I invite you, the echo is a way of learning it, right? Yankee Doodle faced big oil.
Yankee Doodle faced big oil.
Riding on a cycle.
Riding on a cycle.
Your power don't scare us today. Your oil ain't worth a nickel. Yankee Doodle, keep it up. Yankee Doodle dandy. Mind the music and the steps. And with those drums be handy. Every spiritual movement needs its songs. This ain't the only one, for sure. But for those of us who dig it, for those of us who understand what it would mean to become independent of big oil, this might be one of them. Thank you.